So welcome to DeBarra's Spoken Word Story Medicine Hour. It's lovely to see you all, and we've had a very nice warm up, and now it's time for the story medicine. So the first part of the story medicine, I might need a volunteer. Can somebody put up their hand for me? Somebody who would like to volunteer for me. Okay, so as I've no volunteers, I'm going to ask Mose. Mose, will you be my volunteer? Very good. So I'm going to unmute Mose, and I'm going to go into speaker view, Mose. And this story tool, this is called Story Magic. So it's about putting a little bit of story glass onto ordinary things. So what I would like to know is, kind of your day so far. So tell me from when you opened your eyes up until, say, you've had breakfast. Tell me about your day.
Jesus. Yes, no, I did what I do every day. I did some exercises with Indian raga music, and I don't eat until I finish them. And I was a bit nervous about this meeting, but it sort of grounded me okay. And then I had breakfast, I think.
And what kind of lovely breakfast did you have?
Muesli. Muesli, oats milk.
And who was the first person that you had contact with?
Myself.
Yourself?
And then probably somebody on Facebook or WhatsApp, but I'm not sure.
Perfect. Okay.
It's funny, people on Facebook or WhatsApp, they're not that real as all of you are at the moment. Because
yeah, that's it. Zoom is quite magnificent, isn't it? Okay. So this is the way the story magic works. So I would ask you for a little nugget from your day, and Mose has kindly offered it to us. And then I would say, I'm going to say what I heard back to Mose. And if I forget anything, you can let me know. And this is the factual bit. So on today, the 6th of May, 2020, Mose woke up. She got out of bed. She did these lovely Indian exercises that are her routine. She was a bit nervous about today, but actually thinking about it and ticking things off the list grounded her a bit. And then she had contact through WhatsApp or Facebook or one of those, but it wasn't as real as the contact that we're having right now. Is that everything?
Well, it's never everything, but that.
No, it's everything that you told me. Yeah.
Told you.
Did I forget anything that you told me?
Maybe that there was music.
That you were?
That it was with music.
Oh, that it was with music. The Indian exercises.
Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah. And what kind of music?
Ragas. It's improvised.
Ragas.
Oh. Right.
Very nice. You'll have to share that kind of music with me sometime,
Okay.
Okay, so that's the factual telling, And then the second telling is where I take some of my story magic and I add it to the mix. So we always start the story then with once upon a time. Once upon a time, in a beautiful place, there lived a girl called Mose. And Mose would go to bed at night, and everything would come into her dreams and become new. So no matter what happened the day before, it didn't matter, because in the dream world, everything was washed out and made new and just made fabulous again. So she woke up, and when she woke up, her eyes opened quite luxuriously, and she was in a slow pace. And she got out of her bed, and straight away her arms began to move in a very rhythmical way. And she danced out of her room and down the stairs, and the sun was trying to come out from behind a grey cloud. It peeped sometimes, hello, and sometimes it wasn't there at all. And in this kind of space, she lay back on the ground and she turned on the music. And you know that music was quite magic. First, her fingers started to move, and then her wrists, and then her elbows, Then her head got involved, and soon her whole body was moving. And she just knew that it was good for the body, but also for the spirit. And she felt very connected in this dancing to the universe and to other people that had beautiful dreams like she did. And then she thought about connection, and she thought, wouldn't it be nice to talk to somebody? And there was kind of a magic blue box to the left of her. It had a symbol like a big F on it. And she heard it saying, "Hello, Mosey!" But it felt a little bit like responsibility. And it felt a little bit like, oh, I don't want to be on that for ages. So she said, hello back to the F. And the F got it straight away and knew that she didn't want to talk for very long. So the F didn't stay on for very long. But then she was going to have a magical, mystical meeting with a great gathering of people. And for this, she took out a magic square globe. She put it down on her table. She rubbed her hands in anticipation. And she had a cup of tea ready and everything. And then it lit up. And it had a smiley face. And it had a warm energy. And it said, Jose, now we begin. Ta-da! So that's the end of the story magic story. So it's just adding a bit of a sprinkling. So for this bit, I'm just going to unmute everybody and turn chat off to unmute everybody. So I'm going to unmute everybody, but if you could put up your hand if you want to come in, that would be a great help. So the question I'm going to ask is, do you prefer the first one or the second telling?
Oh, the second. The second.
The second, that's Ray. Hi, Ray. Okay, and what did you like about the second telling?
Oh, it teased me with enchantment. And
Yeah.
you felt that you were in the story.
Yeah. So it felt more 3D. It was like what Mose.
Yes, that's a good word. 3D.
Yeah, it's kind of like what Mose was even saying about, Facebook was like, ugh. But this, because we're kind of more interactive, it feels you're connecting on other levels as well.
Yeah, kind of more with your, not with the reasoning part of your head, but more with your imagination and propelling you to kind of magical destinations. Oh, that kind of thing. I loved it.
Yeah, I could see the pleasure in that, Ray, And I suppose I had a really lovely trainer one time, and this trainer said to me, to wisdom, you have to be a whiz at being dumb. You have to let all, kind of attachment to intelligence go, and from that you get wisdom, and knowledge can sometimes get in the way. So the first one was all of the knowledge that I gathered from Mose, the grocery list of how she told me the day was going. And the second bit was a little bit of how I imagined it, and also some interpreting of words that she used, like she said, you forgot the music. And I thought, okay, so maybe the music is important. So I made it an important part of the story. So that's just to give a little demonstration on how, one of the tools of story magic, but there are many, many tools out there. And last year when we did Wellness Week, we used the 6-part story. And I really enjoyed making stories in DeBarra's with the beautiful people of Clonakilty. Now, unfortunately, it is impractical to do it today in this forum. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a 6-part story. And this 6-part story will be touching on a lot of the things that Ray has mentioned there. So it won't be just appealing to the intellect, but it will be appealing to things like tradition and stuff and humanity. And it's an age-old story, and it's a story that came out of the 6-part mechanism. So I'm just going to mute everybody, and I'm going to ask you to get comfortable. So mute everybody first. There we go. And I'm just going to ask you to let the back of your chair hold you. Put your 2 feet on the ground. Take a nice breath in. And then I'm going to tell you this story. So this is the story of An Madra Rua, the fox, and what the fox has to, what the fox has to offer us in terms of wisdom. Moira Rua was beloved in her village. Everybody liked her because she liked everybody. She had a lovely, warm word and a fine smile for everybody that she met. Her little house was paid for. She had a garden that seemed to grow anything she wanted. She had a man that loved her and she loved him. And she had long red hair and beautiful skin. And to the outside world, it looked as if Mora Rua had it all sewn up. Sure, how could she want for anything? Her life was charmed. But in the bottom of her heart, she carried a short, sharp, heavy secret. For she wanted a baby, a child of her own, to rock, to sing to croon to. She had built a room in her little home for this child that never came. There was a little rocking chair in the corner, a carry cot, and the mobiles that she'd made with so much love. Moira was a woman of the knowing, and one morning she woke up sitting bolt upright in the bed. Her husband moved next to her, knowing that this was one of the strange things that happened when you lived with Moira. She ran down the stairs, pulling on her Wellington boots and her green jacket and running out into the misty morning. You know, those magical mists, the ones that are like a liminal space that melt everything, where everything and anything can happen. When she went into the garden, she was drawn straight away towards the gate, for her Anam Cara was waiting there, and she didn't need the sight of her eyes to know where she was. She arrived down by the fox on Madra Rua, and she knelt down, and she looked into the eyes of her Anam Cara, her soul companion. And then something happened. Something happened that had never happened before. Her spirit lifted up effortlessly outside her body and started to float towards the fox. First, her hand went into the front paw, and then her left hand went into the other one. Her eyes lined themselves up behind the eyes of the fox until she could see like she had never seen before. She could see for miles hues and colours that she had never imagined. And then she sniffed the air and she could smell things. She could smell the sheep up in the top field. She could smell the chickens to the left of her. And she knew that they were nervous too, because she knew they could sense her. She got up and lightly padded to the brink of the lovely river and stuck her long fox tongue in. And when she stuck her tongue into the crystal clear water, she could taste things so clearly, like the lavender and the wild garlic and the salmon that had swum there only 10 minutes previously. The fox picked her body up and brought herself and her companion deep into the forest to their tree. And Moira noticed something that she had never noticed before. There was a little opening at the base of the tree, the fox squeezed in under that opening, and then down, down, down into the heart of the earth they went. It was cozy in there. It was quiet and warm and moist. And then she saw 12 stars. And straight away her intellect said, 12 stars? How could that be? Under the earth? And then intellect gave way to instinct, for they weren't stars, but 6 pairs of eyes, the cubs waiting for their ma to return. She lay down with her back supported against the side of the lair, and the cubs jumped on her. They bit her ear and licked her neck and suckled for milk. They gave her a mother's greeting. I know now what it is to be a mother, Moira Rua thought, and she knew that she would stand between these cub foxes and any danger that might come in their way. With that realization, the fox stood up and shook herself off and moved once more to the opening of the tree. When they came out, the mist had cleared. Everything was clear now, and they went back to the garden. When the fox came to the gate, the 2 spirits separated. Moira looked at the fox and said, "Oh, Ma'anam Cara, thank you so much." But the fox stood stock still and looked into Moira's eyes. "I know," she said. "I know what I must do." And she took her Wellingtons off, shrugged out of the coat, and ran up the stairs into the little yellow room. She took everything out of it that was for a different dream and went into town and bought a long piece of timber. She brought it up into that room and then invited all of the children of the village to come in. Oh, the times they had there. They began to call it our place. They played there. They could do things there that they couldn't do at home. They could say things, they could paint things, they could play their games. Over time, Moira Rua became an Shan Wahir Lia, the grey-haired grandmother. And she began to go to the weddings of those same children. Often she'd turn up with a picture that had been framed, and she would give it to them like the piece of art that it was, a little painting that they may have made when they were 5 or 6 or 7 years old. Moira Rua learned that you don't have to give birth to be a mother. And the village learned that it takes a village to raise a child. So I'm just going to unmute everybody there now. So give me 1 second, unmute. So that story is a medicinal story. And I suppose I've told it in a lot of different venues. And even though that I've told it in different places, people would come up and say, that's, but it's a story that works on a micro level where somebody can think that the story is for them, and also on a macro level that it seems to be, kind of mothering seems to be in the zeitgeist at the moment. And a lot of people talk about Mother Earth and, taking time and slowing paces and, enjoying the small things in life. So I suppose what I'm trying to find from you is, what was your reaction to that story? Did you like that story? Did it challenge you? Or is it something that you would like to take the tape of the story and listen to again? So you're unmuted, so you can come in. Caroline, yeah.
I just like that sense that by letting go of something that's perhaps weighting you down, you can open yourself up to something more. You know, the reward of many children, as opposed to the one that was craved, just to make it very literal. But just that sense, and it can be taken with anything, that we can be holding on to stuff that's weighting us down, and if we can find a way to let it go, to look at a situation through someone else's eyes, that we can free ourselves up. And
absolutely,
that really caught me at the start of it, and I think I'd have to re-listen to it, because I think I got very struck with that and stuck with it then.
Yeah. Love that, Caroline, and I love your wisdom in that, because oftentimes when we tell a story, you can tell a story to 30 different people and 30 different versions of the story will go away, because the ears that you have on to listen, even for the same person, you could hear that story tomorrow and something completely about it, you know. But now that has come up, I would love to work with that story, and that's how story medicine works. So I would when you were talking, I started seeing this character walking along, and they were quite free, and then as they walked along, something was put on their back, and then something was given them to hold in their hands, and then they were balancing something on their head, and I was thinking, I'd love to now just get into a corner with Caroline and work with that character and that idea of, you know, how things can become a burden over time, you know. So, and it reminds me, Caroline, of another story, and that often happens in the red thread of story. So because you've said that, and because that has risen up in me, I'm going to share it. And it's the story about the professor, the Harvard professor. You've probably all heard of this. And he comes in and he puts a jar up and he fills it with stones. And he said, "Is this jar full or empty?" And they kids say, "It's full." So he takes out a jar of sand and he pours it between the stones, and it takes everything, and there isn't a bit of sand on the table. They said, "Oh yeah, there was some space in it, but it's full now." So he got a jug of water and he poured it over the sand nice and slowly, and the sand soaked in all of the water, and the students realized that there was still room in that jar, you know. So Caroline's offering brought that memory up in me, you know. Did Caroline's offering touch anything in anybody else? Mostly, yeah.
Well, it was when you told the story. I mean, what she said made me realize that, you know, the way we look at things is one story, and then somebody shifts the perspective, and that is very liberating. But
Yes.
what I'm thinking of when you told the story about the fox and being in the mind of the fox is that there's a psychiatrist or neurologist, Oliver Sacks. He's dead now, but he wrote about all sorts of extremes in, you know, our brains in a way. And one thing he tells is the story of somebody who is a dog for about a week. Somebody in New York City who for a week had all the of a dog. And
all of the attributes, yeah.
You know, and this is a story, but that is sort of real in a scientific way, and that reminded me.
Yeah, it's amazing, really. Like, you know, when you start discussing this, all of the different applications that it can say, like that, you know, and I love Gordon. I love him. I don't know if you ever saw that video, Henry and Alive Inside, and how Gordon Sachs used music. So he was saying that, you know, kind of when we're young and we're exploring and we're finding things, our synapses are, you know, flashing. And then if you get older and if you come into dementia or Alzheimer's, the things that you loved, not the things that you remembered that your intellect hoarded away, but the things that you loved can bring you back and can connect your synapses again for some time. So I recommend to watch that video. It's 6 minutes long and it's called Henry. And maybe we'll post it up later, Jose. Is that okay? We'll post the link.
I've never seen it, but yeah.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. So, and you know, I suppose that would have come from the conversation that we've had with Mose. So you can see there how the stories start to link to one another. and start to bring out other stories. So in my workshop then, sometimes I can see that the same issues are beginning to come up again and again. And then I look at, so Zeitgeist is a German term, and it means the ghost of our time. For example, the ghost of our time in the 60s was the hippie, you know, and make love, not war, that kind of thing, you know. So, and I was born in the 60s. So I love that. I think it just went deep into my psyche, you know. So the zeitgeist of our time, I noticed in this work, particularly between the years of 2007 and 2011, we were moving from a very big consumer society. It was like Ireland, one of the writers at the time said it was like Ireland had had a party for 4 years, and now we were having the hangover, and the Celtic Tiger had left Ireland. So I don't know if you remember that or not. So I'm going to mute everybody, and I'm going to tell you a story that came out of the story medicine that I was doing in the Desh areas of Cork at the time. And I just love it because there's great spirit in it. There's great rebel spirit. I'm going to mute everybody. There we go. And I'm going to ask it to get comfortable again, but maybe not too comfortable, because this story, you know, kind of, it brings, well, it brings my body alive anyway. I let you make up your mind on your own, and its effect on you. So there was a girl living in Cork City, and she'd been born into a time when there was just money everywhere. And then suddenly there was nothing. There was nothing at all. And she'd go to school, and she could see her friends had the most up-to-date runners, and they had these headphones, they had iPads and stuff like that. And she couldn't even afford her lunch, you know, and she began to feel ashamed. And when the other kids noticed this, she began to be bullied. Now, her mother would go and collect her from the school, and she noticed that her lovely, bright, talkative daughter was getting quieter and quieter. And one day, she didn't have time to put on her makeup or anything like this. And she noticed that the other girls were quite mean to her daughter, right in front of her. And she thought, there's no respect anymore. There's no respect for one another. And there's no respect for elders. What's going on here? So she went to the community place where all the women would meet. And she told her friends that. And they said, yeah, if you don't turn up to the school completely, really well turned out, your child will get bullied. So you better have the gel nails, you better have the hair done, you better have a full face of makeup. And she was thinking, oh my God, and how am I going to feed the children? You know, this is crazy. So then one of the older women in the room said, why don't you hang around? She said, hang around and meet the older women in a minute. So that's what she did. And she told her sad tale to the older women in the community. And they folded their arms and they says, come here, girl, that's leaving the children run the nation. And she said, I know, but what am I supposed to do about it? I'm only one, ma'am. And this is area. But, you know, you should, like, you know, you should use the sure, what about it, maybe. And she didn't even hear them because she was thinking, sure, what can I do about this? She said, you know, he didn't have it as hard as us. We have television and adverts coming into our homes. And even when the television is off, the ads are still coming in on the phones. And they went, oh, yeah. Well, this is what about the times during war here in Cork City, when the big brown parcels would come from America or England for some families, but not for all. And we'd be looking out with hungry eyes at these big parcels being delivered to the door. She said, yeah, and what would you do about it? And they said, we told you, we'd use the sure what about it. And she kind of remembered it, but she was trying to think where she heard it before. And she said, can you give me an example? And they said, yeah, you know, say somebody put on great style from New York now. And then they were parading up and down the street, and say you were out shopping They said to you, look at this from New York. And you could say to them, sure, what about it? Then they have two choices. They either get back in their box or they boast more. No one likes a boaster. And the young woman smiled to herself and she said, I remember that. And then she says, but it wouldn't work now. And then the old women looked at her and they says, well, don't even try it so. And she says, what do you mean? She says, it's not what you say, girl, it's how you says it. And she says, well, I don't think it would work, but thanks for the smile and the cup of tea, and I might come and meet you again tomorrow. And they said, sure, you'll be very welcome. She went home and it must have leaked out of her somehow. She must have been telling the postman and her husband and some of the neighbours the story of the sure what about it. Whatever way it happened, it seemed to seep into the child. And the following week, the child was in school. And this big bully came over. You know, the ones who used to have their hair up like that and a quiff in the front, almost like Elvis. And she started tapping her shoes on the ground and she went, Reebok, €60, 'cause I'm worth it. And the young girl went, sure, what about it? And the bully couldn't come back because she didn't have the words to come back with. And the young girl, with great joy, said to her mum, and mum, her head started to go like that because she just couldn't think of an answer. And they had a great laugh that night. But that night, the other girl went home to her mother and father. They said, you go into school tomorrow and you tell her that you're from a 2-income family and you can have nice things because we care about you. So she came in the following day with all these horrible messages from the elders in her home. And this is where story magic came in. The young girl listened to her and she went, 2-income family, And she listened to everything that she said. And then at the end of it, she said, and €60 'cause I'm worth it. And she said, €60 'cause you're worth it? €60 because they saw you coming. She says, what do you mean? She says, they saw you coming. Sure, you could have gotten them in black and blue and orange and green and still have had enough money left over to go to the cinema. €60 because you're worth it. €60 because they saw you coming. And that's my story. So I'm going to unmute everybody now. And to tell you, that's a true story. That actually happened. And it changed the ethos in that school in a matter of a week. It was like a little miracle. What did you think of that story?
I love
Good.
Anne,
Yeah.
one.
Really good.
Thanks, Nick. I'm going to come to Anne because she come in. So Anne, what do you think of that story?
I loved it. It made me laugh, but it was so true. And to have an answer to such sort of bullies, especially for children, it would be terrific, actually. And yes.
Thank you, Anne. I love that. And it's how I felt as well, because very often in my generation in Cork, we were all mashed together, all the generations, and bit by bit we became separated out, and we'd have knowledge, but we didn't have those wisdoms, Anne, so we didn't have the comebacks, the sure what about it's and stuff like that, Mm-hmm. It was almost magical. I mean, we could not believe the quick result that feeding some of the old wisdoms into the mouths of the children had, because scratch the surface and all they want is a little bit of peace too, So thank you for that, Anne. And Nick, did you want to say something?
No, sweetheart. Excuse me. I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave, though. I've got somebody coming home and I've got to do dinner.
No bothers. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, and I'll join you again. It's really inspiring, just this whole Zoom thing as well, and this connecting people and everything.
Thank you. We're learning our way around it, but yeah.
Yeah, totally. I'm just wondering, I can't type up little comments, so I'll have to suss out how you do all that sort of thing.
Oh, no problem.
But listen, an absolute pleasure to meet you all.
And you too, Nick.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick.
See you again. Yeah.
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 Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Take care
Bye.
and enjoy your afternoon.
Thank
Bless
you.
your heart.
Bless
Mose,
you.
I'll talk to you later, Mose, okay?
Friday. Okay.
Bye. Bye-bye, love.
Okay. So yeah, so that was the story for the women. And then at the same time, we were having a lot of work with the lads as well. Now, our hour is getting away from us, lads. So I'm thinking that I might tell the story for the young boys another time, if that's okay with you, as we have so much to cover. And it's almost 10 to 5, and I'm going to keep going until 8 minutes past, because we started at 8 minutes past, and then Mose will do the open mic, you know. So the next part of story is going to the places that nothing else can touch. You know, we used to have a saying in school that if you had a breakup or something like that, you'd organise a depression session for yourself where you get all your sad songs and a packet of potato and your Coke, and you'd invite the girls over and you'd just, you know, kind of listen to the sad music. And of course, in Ireland, we also have the music. We could have really happy thoughts with a very sad air. The worst sadness in terms of words with a very happy air, you know. So that seems to be the way the Irish music goes. So I thought I would risk something today and sing you a song. So this is, I'm going to mute everybody again. So it's muting and unmuting. So I'm going to mute everybody again. And this is a song that came down to Cork in the 1970s. And just to frame it, in that time, there was a lot of young families were evacuated from the north of Ireland and came to live in Cork, and it was overnight. So there was 2 kids in school with me, and they said that what they remembered was somebody coming in and putting a blanket over their head and putting them back into the back of an army truck, and down they came, and they never saw their home again. They then came to live in Cork. So I just wanted to frame that for you. And it was during that time that this song came. So of course they came with their songs and their stories. And this is one of those songs. So, my youngest son came home today. His friends marched with him all the way. The pipes and drums beat out of time, as in his box of polished pine, like dead meat on a butcher's tray. My youngest son came home today. My youngest son was a fine young